everyone, I'm Matt Williamson. How's it going this fine day? Things are good on my end. I hope they're good with you. A couple things I want to touch on today is I have a little chart here, or a graph, I guess it is, that Pro Football Focus puts out every week. And I decided just to kind of clip it, cut it, and paste it. I threw it up on Twitter because it's so distinct. And frankly, every year the Steelers are in this neck of the woods. And what it is, in case you're not looking at it, but I'm going to include it whenever I file the podcast, that I think that they'll be able to have it here for you to see if you want. But it is a one axis. Again, I am not a math major or a graph expert. Is total points. This is all EPA stuff, but still, it just shows how strong they are. Total points gained through turnovers is the vertical axis, where on the other side, on the horizontal axis, I hope I'm saying this stuff right. Again, I talk football, is total points gained on special teams. And so you want to be in the top right quadrant. I mean, if you're in the left top quadrant, that means you're really good on turnovers. You're not good on special teams. You see what I'm saying? I think you guys can figure that out. You don't want to be in the bottom left quadrant. That means you're bad at both. Well, the Steelers stand so far ahead of everyone else in the top right quadrant where you want to be. So if you just look at points gained through turnovers, the only ones that are even in competition with them are the Jags, who are basically equal, and the Bears are ahead of everybody. They've caused the most turnovers in the league. So the Steelers are top three in that regard. And then special teams as a whole, they're top two. It looks like Washington's ahead of them. They're slightly above Seattle. They're slightly above Minnesota. So they stand alone in really the depths, the definition of hidden yardage. There's other things hidden yardage wise, penalties, et cetera, et cetera. But they're there every year. Chris Boswell has a lot to do with that. You have a phenomenal kicker who they trust and they use a lot. That's certainly helpful. I think Danny Smith has a ton to do with it. They seem to they frankly block more kicks than pretty much anyone in the league since he's been here. I also think it has something to do with the way they construct the roster. They're very special teams aware when they build their final 53. And, some of us thought it was odd when they called two running backs up to have 5 total on the roster for this past week. Well, those two were for special teams reasons. They didn't carry the ball. They weren't part of the offense. So they're very conscious in that regard. They put more effort into their roster. I don't go to other practices, but they spend a lot of time on special teams. I would think that that's near the top of the league. And the turnover stuff we've talked to no end. I mean, I don't think it's an accident that they are great in the turnover department. And this also goes for not turning the ball over. I think they've been a little more aggressive on offense than they were in the Duck and Trubisky eras, that we can't turn the ball over. We're going to be, they have no chance to win. But the way they play defense and the way they rush the passer and the way they force fumbles and the way they bat down passes, they're pretty much always at the top of the league in taking the ball away. And it's a tough way to live, but the proof's in the pudding. I mean, this chart to me, or this graph, is really telling. A lot of the numbers I cite will be things like, man, they get outgained all the time. Well, how they always have this winning record. I mean, the Tomlin voodoo, blah, blah, blah. Well, they're always in the top right quadrant in turnovers and special teams. And this graphic was just too glaring for me not to share it with you. I mean, they're way in the top all by themselves, way better than everyone else when you combine those things. Last note on this is take a look at the opposite end of the spectrum. Bottom left. Well, there's the Saints down there that are really terrible, but your upcoming opponent, the Chargers, are also horrendous. So I just wanted to make that clear. When I preview the game tomorrow, maybe I'll forget it, but a huge advantage for the Steelers in the hidden yardage world on Sunday night. Special teams, and turnover differential.
Football season's finally here. Time to check out the latest odds, futures, and win totals on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Think the Steelers are headed to the Super Bowl? Lock in your bets today. Whatever your game, FanDuel Sportsbook delivers the latest lines, futures, and specials so you can join in on all the action.
One other thing I wanted to talk about that is kind of a byproduct. It's becoming more and more clear, but it also is a byproduct of the trade deadline. Is more and more, I always tell myself this is the year I'm going to really stay on top of college prospects. And then I get super busy with all my NFL stuff. And it just frankly becomes very difficult to do. And it's not that I don't have any clue who those dudes are. I pay some attention. But this year, Wes and I on the drive have done a weekly segment talking about the quarterbacks. Let's keep up with the quarterbacks. Let's make a conscious note to do that. And it doesn't look like a bad class of quarterbacks. And I talk about this because I think the plan, and I've brought this up to you guys 8,000 times, is to draft a quarterback for the Steelers in this upcoming draft, which coincidentally is in Pittsburgh, but that's not why you would do it. You do it because it's the time and, it fits well. Well, this class is still, there's so much more to be named, but it looks like, or at least there's a chance, Sellers at South Carolina, Moore at Oregon, certainly Arch Manning at Texas, who is playing better. Guys we thought had a real good chance to come out, I think have a real good chance to go back and get the NIL money and, get more starts, which probably enhances their stock. And of course, there'll still be other quarterbacks in the first round, and there's dudes that have emerged. But the wealth of quarterbacks does not look, the supply doesn't look as good as we thought. Let's just put it that way. Like Klubnik in Clemson, Nussmeier for LSU, Aller for Penn State, like those guys' stock has drastically fallen for a multitude of reasons from the summer. And yes, some dudes have stepped up, but fewer have stepped up than have stepped back. Also, and I'll do this again, I'll probably do this 2 or 3 times between now and actual draft day. I think more and more NFL teams are going to be in the quarterback market than I originally thought. A perfect example is Arizona. Arizona basically just benched Kyler Murray for Jacoby Brissett. I don't think Kyler Murray is likely to be a Cardinal next year. I don't think he's going to be a Steeler either, don't get me wrong. But they were a team that was kind of on the fence. Would they be a quarterback needy team or not? Miami's another one. And I lean towards, Carolina's another with Bryce Young. And I lean towards these questionable ones, leaning towards, yes, we are going to put our hat in the ring for a quarterback. Let alone the really bad teams that are picking early, the Jets, the Raiders, etc., the Browns. But why I brought up the trade deadline is now there's several teams due to trades this week that have more draft firepower. The Jets are the perfect example than originally thought. That if they need a quarterback, and like the Rams are another example, they didn't make a trade, but they have the Falcons first round pick and they have the Rams first round pick. So we have several teams now with multiple firsts. And the Rams, I think, are one of the better teams that could also be in the quarterback market. And my point with that is if the supply dried up and the demand is getting stronger and making things even worse from the Steelers' perspective, some of your major competitors to land a quarterback now have more firepower than they used to. It's going to be hard to outbid those dudes. I mean, even if the Steelers end up with the 20th pick in the draft and only want to move to 8 or 9 to get their guy, they just don't have as many picks as some of these other teams. Not as many picks. They got a ton of picks. They just don't have the top 2 first rounders. Or I guess I'll just cut to the chase and end this. But I think it's going to be, the bottom line is, as it stands here on November 5th when I record this, the plan to grab a quarterback in round 1 of this upcoming draft is going to be a lot harder to pull off than I originally expected. Not that I thought it would be easy and it'd be a drop in the, it'd be nothing to it. But maybe next year it's Rodgers again. You give Howard a lot more run. I know a lot of you guys would like to see that. I understand it. Maybe you don't draft one until another year from now. I don't know. Maybe you try a reclamation project like a Kyler or a Tua or something like that if Rodgers retires. We're getting way ahead of ourselves. But what I wanted to stress here is just paying attention to the college landscape, the NFL landscape, and now the trade deadline, a third factor. I think it's going to be a lot harder for the Steelers to land their next Big Ben in the first round. All right, thanks, everyone. We will preview Steelers-Chargers tomorrow.